This is Will Friedle, the voice of the future Dark Knight, Batman Beyond, and you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app. And remember a few things. First, Dana deserves better. And second, I am Batman.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting bonus episode of the DCAU Review. I am Liam, and with me, as he always is Cal. Cal, just when we thought we were done, they pulled us back in for one last pre-Batman Caped Crusader bonus episode. There was just too much news that dropped kind of all at once over about the last 6 or 7 days. Mm-hmm. So there was enough meat on the bone, as it were, for one last ride. As we get a little extra hyped, a little extra prepared, as we're just over a month away from the series premiere. So we've got cast, at least a partial cast. We have a lot of names, although we don't necessarily know who everyone's playing yet. Mm-hmm. We have a full trailer that dropped today, or at the time of recording, it dropped Wednesday afternoon, and then we even got the first official poster, which I hope they sell that, because I would like that on my wall. Mm-hmm. So we got a lot to get into here, Cal. A lot of news. We thought we were done, but there's still more that we had left to talk about when it comes to getting hyped for the nearly here premiere of Batman Caped Crusader.
Yeah, that's right. I arm wrestled you into it. I mean, we promised we would not do this again, but I must say, I can't help it. The listeners love a good Batman Caped Crusader podcast, and it's the perfect time to plug the fact that, of course, we'll be reviewing the Batman Caped Crusader for the entire month of August. So if you only ever check out our bonus episodes, tune back in every Saturday, but specifically, if you're interested in Batman Caped Crusader, the month of August, each and every Saturday, we'll be reviewing one episode each and every week. So excited to tackle that with you, and then, of course, talk about the news of the series today. So, as you mentioned, a little over a week ago, or a little less than a week ago, as of recording time, we had a mini trailer kind of drop out of nowhere. And that was accompanied by several different articles. I think Vanity Fair and Variety both ran subsequent articles discussing our voice cast. So we had a interesting kind of, like, I don't know, 15 to 20 second trailer drop on across the social medias and internet that featured a voiceover talking about all of the cast included. Of course, the articles that accompanied that, we had some interesting quotes from showrunners Bruce Timm and James Tucker, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But essentially, there's a huge cast of people. I won't go through every single name, just probably going through the most notable names. Haley Joel Osment, formerly known as the kid in the Sixth Sense. He's a full-grown man now. He's no longer
a beard and everything.
Right, exactly. He's one of the names that is attached in an undefined role thus far. Gary Anthony Williams, who I think you and I are both longtime fans of Whose Line Is It Anyway? He's a veteran from that, as well as being a character actor.
Boston Legal, yeah.
Yep. A couple other things.
I think his name's popped up a few times, maybe in Batman Beyond or Static or something as well.
He's very, very recognizable face and character actor as well. How about this one? SpongeBob SquarePants himself, Tom Kenny, returning to the world of Batman some 20 years after playing the role of the Penguin in the Batman animated series. Not that one, the Batman. He played, of course, the Penguin there. So once again, returning to the world of the Dark Knight here. Nice to see a voice acting veteran who, obviously, regardless of whatever role he plays, gonna be fantastic, no doubt.
Great voice. Just his regular speaking voice is like a great 1940s guy. Like, no matter who he ends up playing.
Absolutely.
In here, absolutely great. He's just got like a guy who sounds like he would be on an old time radio drama, like a pro's pro of voice acting, of course.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Then, of course, John DiMaggio, fans of animation, he's definitely popped up in some DCAU roles before, but of course, probably most well known for his take on Bender from
Mm-hmm.
Futurama. And he's also Jake the Dog on Adventure Time. So lots of famous voice acting roles for him. Again, feels like somebody that they reached out to and they had cast is like, yeah, this is a high profile voice actor that is good at what he does. Let's
Oh
bring him
yeah.
for an unnamed role thus far. Rounding out just a couple of the other names that we have here, not leaving anybody off intentionally, but just for time's sake, Michelle Bonilla, who did a lot of work on ER, and then Minnie Driver, who's a actress that's been in Hollywood for decades
Oh yeah.
at this point, has been cast also in an unnamed role, as well as a newcomer, McKenna Grace, who was probably most recently involved in the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire movie, the sequel to that.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the unnamed actors and actresses. So lots of people, names you recognize, faces you would recognize. And then came the people who we know in what roles. Kicking things off, Liam, we'll talk about our heavy hitter, someone we already knew was cast, but now have the role assigned to. Voice acting legend, especially around these parts, Dietrich Bader was cast as Harvey Dent / Two-Face. So that's an exciting one that, I think Mr. Bader revealed on Twitter, I don't know, 3 years ago or something that he had been cast in the show.
Yeah. Well, I think it was when we didn't know when it was going to air,
Mm-hmm.
when it looked like it had just been perhaps outright canceled, like a lot of things HBO Max had produced at the time. I think he had mentioned at that point that he had just been recording lines for it not too long ago. So yeah, great to see him, and yeah, I love him as Harvey Dent. Obviously, already played a version of the Dark Knight himself, and of course is the voice of Zeta, and so yeah, well known voice, very very distinct voice, and I'm curious to see how he will play the duality of a character like Two Face. Will he go for a more over the top change in voice between Harvey and Two Face like the late Richard Mall did, or does he have something else in mind? It'll be exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we had Jamie Chung, who is announced as the voice of Harley Quinn / Dr. Harleen Quinzel. She also has quite the list of voice actor or actress and kind of character actor roles and across television. Originally, according to her Wikipedia page, at least, was a character on the Real World San Diego. So that reality television show from MTV from back in the day was where she got her start. So, been in television a long time. She was in one of the Hangover sequels. She was in the Zack Snyder film Sucker Punch. So lots of stuff on her resume there. So I'm not as familiar with her, but clearly lots of things under her resume there that seem to qualify her for a turn at Harley Quinn.
Absolutely, yeah. It'll be as we've talked about in our previous episode. They mentioned that the characterization of Harley will be a little bit reversed, where her alter ego as the psychiatrist will be the more bubbly and easygoing one, and the costumed version will be the one that's a bit more serious and commanding. So it'll be interesting to see again, as is a theme with a lot of Batman villains. It'll be interesting to see how she approaches the duality, and in this case, the reverse duality to what we'd be used to for a character like this.
Yeah, and then we had maybe the most notable name as far as name value is concerned here, but actress Christina Ricci was cast. She is playing Catwoman / Selena Kyle, of course, a longtime actor or actress. She's been in a ton of different movies, very famous. Lots of that one was kind of surprising because it feels like I guess maybe she's moved more into that voice acting area, or she's been doing it for quite some time, so maybe she's just leaning heavily into it. But this seems like a one that is a good name recognition. People know the name, obviously, but it also seems that from the article in Vanity Fair, they talked about how Bruce Timm and James Tucker talked about how when they were doing the casting that she's kind of the characterization of Catwoman is not the romance that we were kind of used to. It's more of some sort of chemical attraction between the two of them is how they described it. And her performance is more based off of some certain actresses from the 1940s, and that she was really able to nail that characterization, which is why they ended up going with her as this universe's Selena Kyle.
Yeah, honestly, my first thought was, and fan casting what we got. No offense to anyone who has played her in live action. I was like, probably would have been a good choice to play a Catwoman in live action at some point too. Like, I don't know, she has that look and certainly the range. So yeah, that's exciting. That's really interesting. Yeah, the way it was they described their relationship, and we'll get to it a little bit as we talk about the trailer and about our Batman actor. But they really see this version of Batman as much more closed off even than the Batman the Animated Series version, and that he is, he's much more akin to like a pulp hero like the Shadow or someone like that from the 1940s, who doesn't have a lot going on, and what he does have in sort of his public facing civilian life is very put on. So when he meets this woman, it kind of triggers something that he's never really he doesn't understand what it is, and he's never really processed that sort of emotion before. So yeah, definitely excited to see what how that's verbalized by Miss Ricci's performance.
Absolutely. And then kind of rounding things off, we got our big reveal of just who is playing our Dark Knight himself, and that is actor Hamish Linklater, who to me, I was like, I know his face. Like, I was like, I know this guy. Where do I know him from? And you immediately called out that you recognized him from 2005's Fantastic Four movie, the guy that played the assistant to Doctor Doom, which was a hell of a pull.
Julian McMahon, television's Julian McMahon's assistant in the film Fantastic Four 05. Yes, that was immediately what sprang to mind.
For me, I apparently recognized him as from a show that I never remember watching, but I guess seeing commercials during professional football every Sunday or whatever, I must have picked up, like, slipped in my subconscious. But he was the brother on the Julia Louis-Dreyfus vehicle, The New Adventures of Old Christine, which
yes.
I think that ran for like 8 seasons or 6 seasons or something. Like, he was on that show as her brother in that show. So Mr. Linklater has a long and storied acting career. I was reading a little bit about him kind of growing up, and actually I think they didn't say it in the one article from Vanity Fair where Bruce Timm and James Tucker were talking about the casting, but he comes from a family that is classically stage trained, and he, as a child, did Shakespeare. Like, he was in Shakespeare plays at like age 8 or 9 or something like that. So, in the tradition of a Bruce Timm led vehicle for Batman in animation, you have your Batman casting as a person that is a traditional or is comfortable, I should say, maybe not traditional in Hamish's sense of the word, but he's comfortable speaking from a stage, which in turn somewhat feeds into his Batman performance from what maybe we discover from some of the clips we hear.
Absolutely. I mean, that's something going back to the old DCAU. Andrea Romano, as the voice director and caster, loved casting stage actors in her role, even if they had done on-camera work as well. She just said that she found like the transition to from stage to the voice booth was one that was pretty was kind of a natural one, and obviously the most famous example being with the Batman of the main DCAU, Kevin Conroy himself, who had never done any voice acting or voiceover work of any kind before being cast. So yeah, I think that's a great pedigree, as you mentioned here. And we're kind of jumping around here, but I will just mention when with the trailer, which we will talk about at length in a moment here, there was Also, an article that IGN published with quotes from James Tucker and Bruce Timm, as well as Mr. Linklater himself. And just to clear that up, just to make it clear, Kevin Conroy's death is not why Mr. Linklater was cast in this show. It was, according to Bruce Timm, there was never a serious consideration to bring Kevin Conroy in to be the Batman of this show. If for no other reason than because they wanted, they were trying to differentiate it as much from Batman the Animated Series and remix it, as Mr. Timm says. But the quote is, as much as I loved working with Kevin, as much as I always tried to bring him back whenever we could, we felt that we kind of needed to go in a different direction. He felt like the minute that they had brought Kevin back, if they'd gone that way, it's hard enough to get people to realize it's a remix, not a reboot. It's not a remake or a reboot. So we felt like right out of the gate, we needed to have somebody different play him. So Mr. Linklater didn't steal a role or take a role from the dearly departed Kevin Conroy. This was always, it sounds like he was always the guy they had in mind, at least after he had auditioned. And I know Bruce Timm in that same IGN article also mentions how taken both he and Mr. Tucker were with not just the Batman voice, but with his Bruce Wayne voice as well, which can be tough to nail historically for actors of live action and voice acting.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, in the Vanity Fair article that came out the same day, speaking of Kevin Conroy, while we're on it, Mr. Linklater mentioned that in his head, as he was doing his Batman performance, he was not necessarily mimicking it. He says, "I think it's actually off of my memory of Kevin Conroy's voice," Linklater said. "When I actually rewatched the show, I realized that it was different, but I had him in my head." So he talks about, he goes on to say that, Bruce Timm goes on to say that, they ultimately gave the role to Mr. Linklater because of his take on Bruce Wayne. He says, "We had a lot of people who were pretty good Batmans, but almost no good Bruces," which I think, if memory serves me correct, there was something to that. I think it was the reverse for Bruce and Batman and how Kevin Conroy got it. So kind of following suit here, same thread pulling through here. But I like the idea here that there's plenty of stuff that's familiar. We already talked about it last month with being set in the 1940s, and they're keeping that idea that Bruce Wayne is the mask, Batman is the person. But there's enough changes, I think, and variations here that we're looking at from characterization, enough from the quotes that, the showrunners have given us that kind of give me hope that, all right, it's going to feel comfortable, but you're also going to get to see new things too. We might not like that all the time, but it's nice to see that they're going to at least give it an opportunity to be its own series.
Yeah, and I think, well, it's funny, we may have touched on this on the last bonus episode as well, but as mentioned, they brought up like Doc Savage and these sort of pulp radio and comic strip characters. The Shadow, obviously, there's a lot of the Shadow in those original Bill Finger and Bob Kane comics, which this is obviously heavily pulling from visually as well. And one of the things, as mentioned, about those characters is that they're not quite so squeaky clean. They are a hero, but we'll talk about that when we get to the trailer, about this Batman's relationship with the police and that sort of thing, but also and that when the mask is not on, they don't necessarily know doesn't always know how to navigate those, the secret identity. That's uncomfortable for him. And I think I made this comparison last time, but that's obviously something they drew on to an extreme degree on the Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson live action movie. So I think we could see something similar here. It looks like he does have some sort of foppish playboy persona that he'll be playing into. So it'll be interesting to see how sort of put on that voice and that character is when he's not in the bat suit.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much a good transition, by the way. Mentioning the trailer, we can kind of get into just our thoughts on it. One of the things that kind of has its foot in both the voice cast announcement and the trailer that was not actually announced, but is worth noting for longtime DCAU fans. Corey Burton is the very first voice that you hear in the trailer, by the way. So the fact that
Absolutely.
Corey Burton is back in a DC animated project, two thumbs up for me already. I think that's pretty much won me over. It would feel very alien if they didn't include Mr. Burton in this project.
Oh, absolutely. And again, perfect 1930s radio serial
Hmm.
voice, and of course he's probably doing two or three voices as he's throughout the
I
episode. So.
I would be shocked if he was not. So yeah, kicking. We're not going to go beat for beat into this, but you really start things off and get an idea of what they're trying to communicate as far as where we are with this. This seems to be very early on in Batman's career. We hear this, voiceovers of different citizens being interviewed by this Corey Burton newsman, asking them their opinions of the Batman, and most of them are pretty skeptical as far as to whether or not he's an actual help to the city. One woman is terrified. Another one says the whole city's gone to hell in a handbasket. And then that leads us to a transition to kind of see a couple of our rogues. So we see Firefly for the very first time, which you pointed out, just an incredible animated transition here of looking at fire and it's got in his goggles and it flashes to his face. Just a really, really neat looking bit there. Then we get as this commentary is going on, more people expressing that they're not fans of Batman's work, that he's a criminal, perhaps, which is ironic because he's got they give a shot of him, with two criminals hanging upside down from a lamppost. And then we get a look at the GCPD. There's someone that's making a presentation to the GCPD about the Batman, how they're going to take him on, what they're going to do, how they can best take on the Batman. We hear some more opinions from the police officers as to what he's been doing in and around Gotham. He's taken out dope pushers and scumbags across the city. We get some incredible shots of Batman kind of silhouetted by Tommy gunfire and punching guys. We see a lot of action in this trailer, violence,
Mm-hmm.
fists hitting faces, stuff that I think goes back to both the article that came out with the trailer today, Liam, and the Vanity Fair article where they made it clear this isn't going to be like a rated R Harley Quinn animated series style show where everything is off
Mm-hmm.
limits and it's wild and out of the box. However, it is not about selling toys, I think is what Bruce Timm says in the IGN article, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. He specifically mentioned that it's not that they're specifically setting out to make, like you said, an adult cartoon, but that they are not so hamstrung by the types of plots they have to do or the type of gadgets or vehicles perhaps they might have to include in a specific episode in order to prop up the toy sales that they might have had those sort of notes on the original series. So I think that makes sense, and it kind of excites me because that show was far from the only one that had a lot of toy company meddling. The Marvel shows of that era probably had more
Mm-hmm.
direct issues with that because they were owned by a toy company.
Right.
But it was always an issue for those classic Saturday morning cartoons of wanting to tell a good story versus having all of these demands you needed to meet from both the network and your toy partners. So yeah, it's exciting to see what they can do with a little less be a little less handcuffed in that way.
Yeah, which speaking of toys and vehicles and all the things that they would like to sell kids, that cuts in the trailer. We get our first look at the Batmobile, which is a far less souped up sports car than we saw in Batman the Animated Series. It's kind of just a car, which I like. I think we talked
Mm-hmm.
about this maybe when we reviewed the Pattinson Batman film, but the idea that it's just a car and it's not a tank or some sort of, weird future retro. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the Batmobile from the classic animated series, but
Oh, sure.
I think for what they're going for with this, which is we've learned in different interviews, I think James Tucker said it even in the Vanity Fair, like no one's done this style of like period piece Batman grounded in that 1940s era without any modern technology being infiltrating it. So they really did their best to set this in that era to make it more realistic. So you couldn't have like in reality you wouldn't have a tank rolling around crushing cars. It has to be just kind of a car.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and it's yeah, we already talked about it. I think you already mentioned the Pattinson Batman. Yeah, I like the idea that it's built for speed as much as it is,
Yeah,
an armored vehicle. So I
right.
like the idea of that. And you do see the interior, and he has like smoke and a rocket thruster still on the back. So it's still very much, it still feels very Batman, but it's a little stripped down from the more science fictiony aspects of those, giant like 10-foot long things
Right.
he's driven in some of the other movies or in even the original animated series.
From the Batmobile shot, we see him kind of ramming through a couple of police paddy wagons, and we have this politician. Could be I don't know. We haven't determined it. I don't remember if we've determined Commissioner Gordon isn't Commissioner Gordon yet, from what we gathered. So maybe this is the commissioner, or maybe this is the mayor of Gotham. It's some sort of politician or leader standing on the steps, decrying that Batman is not a hero. We need to end Batman, and they're kind of leading the charge at this political rally taking place on the steps. Looks like maybe GCPD. Then we get a look at Wayne Manor for the first time, which cool looking mansion with a creepy like little tower attached to it, which I kind of liked. We see Batman and Alfred working together in doing some investigative work in the Bat Cave.
Mm-hmm.
No Bat computer to be seen, by the way. Obviously, 1940s, so I think computers are not going to be around here. They do have just like a basic glass board with a map of Gotham on it that they're
Mm-hmm.
drawing around on, and
It looks like there's like some microfilm he's looking at,
yep,
although it's whatever he's looking at is replaced by an advertisement that says, from Bruce Timm in the trailer, but I'm guessing that will be replaced by something more relevant in the actual final product. But yeah, it looks like that it's very much set. We're not cheating in and including, primitive Palm Pilot computers or anything like
right.
that. So yeah, so it's all going to be pretty above board in that way.
There you go. And microscope also, an old-timey science
Mm-hmm.
microscope also there. So as Batman, we learn maybe a plot of one of the episodes. He's investigating some explosions that have been happening in and around Gotham. So we kind of get a read on what he's doing there. We get a shot of some gangster sitting in a chair at some place. I read, I think, on the Reddit for Caped Crusader that at some point Rupert Thorne had been leaked as a potential character for the show. Take that
Mm-hmm.
with a grain of salt, but there's a guy with white hair talking about how it's the trailer is cut to make you think he's talking about Batman. Could be talking about anybody really, but says he needs to be scratched. Then we see really what they took and then used as for part of the photo for poster for the series that they released the day before the actual trailer, which is Batman chasing Catwoman across this neon lit rooftop in Gotham with these gigantic letters that say Clowder Industries. I learned today, by the way, that a group of cats is known as a Clowder, by the way. Did not know that before today, but the more you know. So, by the way, they changed it for the poster. Batman's hanging off a neon lit sign that says Gotham, not Clowder Industries. But either
Mm-hmm.
way, that poster, as you mentioned, Liam, at the start, yeah, give me all of the merchandise with that on it, please, because it's just a striking, really neat visual of this Batman that's partially lit and silhouetted, hanging off of this neon sign. It just screams cool.
Absolutely, yeah. That poster image is incredibly striking, and yeah, there's something that always, I guess that's like an old school. Like I feel like you would see that in like Hong Kong action movies and anime and things like that, where you would see like the characters almost sort of silhouetted against the bright red neon sign behind them. I think that's
Hmm.
always just such a striking visual, and this one is no exception here.
There you go. We get our first looks at Harvey Dent as Harvey Dent at a political rally. We also see Harley Quinn for the first time. She's talking about how the Kings aren't running Gotham anymore. The Jesters do, or the Jester does. We get a shot of the villain Onomatopoeia, who fulfills his name, lives up to his namesake with just saying the word bang. We get a shot of a ship that's titled the Iceberg Lounge that's hanging out in the water there. So we get a cruise ship Iceberg Lounge here, which I like. And then we get a shot. Apparently, he's not Harvey Dent for long, because we get a shot of Two-Face immediately in this trailer as he's lighting a match, perhaps torturing somebody. One of the articles that we read, I believe, said that they're kind of flipped the Two-Face personification on its head, where he's a corrupt DA and then he kind of becomes less corrupt as Two-Face. So I'm interested to see, maybe he's taking a role as a vigilante himself, and Batman steps in to try and stop him from taking that role here. Very interested to see that this characterization kind of change as opposed to what we're normally traditionally used to with Two-Face slash Harvey Dent.
Yeah, I mean, very similarly to to what they said about Harley Quinn. It's not a matter of, and I think this is almost a direct quote from that IGN article, but talked about it's not changing something just to change it. It's or just to swap it to see what would happen. But it was about where that could lead, and what new avenues that could lead them to. So yeah, it is really interesting, because that's, as far as I know, it's the way that they've always done Two-Face in every medium he's been in, is that he's the good guy, and maybe he has the split personality previously, but ultimately he's a crusader for justice until the accident, and then or until somebody throws acid in his face, and then he's from there, that's when the corruption really surfaces. So to completely turn that on its head, and yeah, make him maybe more of a reflection of Batman in a different way. He still can represent that duality, and that fall from grace, but it would be in a completely different way if he's more of a Dexter style, like punishing the guilty, and with his newfound duality. That's a very, very different take on a character like that. So, and it creates a lot of interesting avenues that you can take him, that you can't take the guy who's just, well, he used to be nice, but now he flips a coin and he has a machine gun and his suit is half white and half black. Like, not that I don't adore the Batman the animated series or some of the other
Hmm.
takes we've gotten, but yeah, that's like we said, that's kind of the whole point, is to try to explore new avenues and remix things, as Bruce and Mr. Tucker said.
There we go. And as Two-Face is talking, apparently, maybe at least the trailer is cut to make you think he's talking to Batman, talking about how no matter how many monsters he takes down, 100 more will show up to take his place. And Batman responds, at least in the trailer, probably, but now they'll know I'm coming for them, which is a really cool line.
Oh
That's
yeah.
mixed in with some really neat imagery. We get another look at Clayface, Basil Karloff. Basil Karloff, that's his name. Karloff.
Harlow, yeah.
I always want to make it Karloff because that's the real actor.
Right.
Basil Karlo. We also get a real quick shot of this creepy looking scientist who gets punched in the face and has like a fist imprint in his face. I don't know if that's if that's Basil in disguise of some sort
Hmm.
or what it is, but it's a very creepy looking image because he kind of looks like Hugo Strange. He's got those white glasses with, you can't see the pupils of his eyes, but he clearly has like a fist imprint where his mouth would be, which is very creepy. Then we get a reveal of the Penguin. Also, we get a quick shot of the Penguin, who Iceberg Lounge Penguin. You kind of knew he was hanging around here someplace. So he is shown also. We get some more action shots of Batman, and then More shots of Firefly. We get the first shot of the Gentleman Ghost, which is a terrifying image of him getting his creepy mask burnt off and the skeletal remains underneath of it. We get some sort of black cloud or spirit possessing Alfred. Batman sword fighting Clayface. Catwoman electrocuting Batman, and then Batman, the Batmobile, kind of sliding in a car chase between a police car and a gangster who's firing a Tommy gun, and then Two-Face looking up to see Batman crashing through a skylight, and just the perfect exclamation point for the entire trailer there. And then we get the reveal for the logo and the August 1st, and I'm ready to run through a wall.
Yeah, it's a great trailer. There is one sort of direct BTAS homage we should mention. I think it's during the portion of the trailer when they're complaining about how he's attacked. It's just after you see that Iceberg Lounge yacht, we see an explosion, possibly fired from that ship, because it looks like it's shooting a missile. We see it hit the police headquarters, and the way it is structured is almost exactly the same as the explosion at the beginning of the BTAS intro. So
there we go.
Probably not an accident if we had to guess.
I feel like there's going to be lots of subtle homages. We pointed out afterwards also that there's in the scene with the GCPD presentation, there's a little drawing of Batman up on this clipboard, and it's a direct homage to this Bob Kane drawing from Batman #1. So I'm sure they're going to do. I mean, we saw it over and over again, the amount of homages that Bruce Timm and the other people that worked on the original DCAU and Batman the Animated Series paid homage to different comic creators and different imagery and their favorite artists and actors and movies. And I imagine we'll probably get more of that, because it makes for good television and is a nice little, hey, if you know, you know.
Absolutely. But yeah, that brings us to the end. As mentioned, there's this IGN article that came along with the trailer when it first debuted, before it ended up on everybody else's sites and YouTube 2 minutes later. But yeah, like I said, there's a few other notes in there as far as other superhero characters we might see in this universe. And sorry to be the bearer of bad news if this is something you wanted to see of this world, but at least at the start, at least with the first couple of seasons that were guaranteed here, that ain't happening anytime soon.
I was gonna say, I think that was. I feel like Bruce Timm and James Tucker tried to get out ahead of that, like very early on, because I feel like one of the very first discussions that they had, whether it was in that fandom or a subsequent article, there was something where they were like, yeah, there are no other heroes. There's no Robin. There's no other hero. That Batman is the only hero. Like he's one of a kind.
Right. I mean, they and James Tucker gave themselves a little wiggle room. They said they've only done 10 episodes so far. They're beginning work on season 2 at the moment. I know it's mentioned that Hamish Linklater is currently recording his lines for the second season, so that second season is in production,
which is awesome.
Great to know. So as far as when we start looking at once we all binge these 10 episodes in one day and we start demanding to find out when the next season will be out, we know at least it's already in production at the very least. But yeah, that's one of the things you mentioned, that if they go 80, 100 episodes, yeah, maybe they'll get to a Robin or a Batgirl or even a Superman someday, but that's not really something they're looking to do, and it's not anything they see on the horizons imminently, which again I think is great. And one of the things they mentioned in that article as well is that by making Batman this more almost not mystic, but simplifying the Batman to this sort of pulp creature, almost more than a man, they mentioned that does allow them to better flesh out characters like Commissioner Gordon and Barbara and Montoya and Harley and all these other side characters that we'll be spending time with across these episodes, that by having Batman be more of this silent creature moving through the night, that it does also give you a chance to flesh out the non-superhero characters. And I think that's really something, by and large, this is me getting on my soapbox maybe a little bit, but kind of been missing from a lot of superhero medium either everyone in the supporting cast gets turned into a superhero themselves,
Mm-hmm.
or they're like the person in the chair that's helping. Like it's hard.
Right.
It's, I feel like if you look at some of the comics of maybe like the 70s to the 90s, those supporting casts were kind of fleshed out a little bit better and had their own stories that weren't necessarily related to the super villain attacking the city or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So and I am sure it'll all be in service of the greater narrative. But I think allowing us to spend more time with the non costumed characters and learn to care about them, and it lets people like Commissioner Gordon be something besides. We kind of joke about that when we cover some of these later episodes of Batman the Animated Series. He flips on the signal, he's like, "What's going on?" And then Batman just disappears on him, and he's got a much so letting him have a more proactive and increased role in the show, along with characters like Montoya, I think is a great idea and a great way to flesh those people out in this world, without having to fight for screen time with a Robin or any other costumed heroes as well.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better than that. I'm looking forward to seeing this. I think both of us are. I mean, we were already pretty high on this, based on the last articles and the last bonus episode that we talked about, just kind of being excited that something new is coming, something that we thought might never see the light of day. But I think, for me at least, and I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts, I don't think anything has dampened those at all, that excitement at all. The trailer, the poster, Mr. Linklater's initial sort of vocalization of a characterization of Batman. So far, nothing has happened that has made me less excited. It's just kind of increased the excitement that I have for this show to drop.
Yeah, I think we may have touched on this in the last one again, but like it feels real now. It felt like everything we were talking about. I mean, for so many, we were talking about, writers like Ed Brubaker being brought on, or concept art, or when it got picked up by Prime after it had been sort of shipped off from HBO. Like we were dining on crumbs. It felt like for a long time, and those shows are fun because, as we talked about, one of our favorite things to do with these shows is baselessly speculate about what we think could be happening based on these little nuggets here and there. So that is a lot of fun. But now that we're actually in the home stretch here, and we're again nary a month away from hearing or from getting to see these episodes with our own eyes and decide what we like and what we don't like about them ourselves, it's really exciting. One other thing I'll mention as we begin to wrap up here is they did mention they kind of are taking a hybrid approach between the very sort of continuous narrative of something like a Justice League Unlimited or a modern prestige TV show, and the old Batman the Animated Series, which had very little connective tissue between the episodes at all.
Mm-hmm.
They said they kind of want each episode to be they want it to be more of a serial. They want to have standalone adventures and episodes that people can watch, but that when you watch them in order, you'll see there is a larger story being told as well. And I think that's to me how most superhero stories should be told,
Mm-hmm.
and what they lend themselves to anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That's how comics have been produced for years and years. And I think when they are at their most successful as a storytelling medium, as superhero stories in general, is when you have multiple episodes, multiple different, it's not just one long, it's not a 10-hour movie, or maybe it's a 5-hour movie if it's 10 episodes. We don't know how long each episode will be yet, but it's also not completely standalone, where it doesn't feel like there's much connective tissue between them. So that's exciting. Unsurprisingly, Bruce Timm mentioned Buffy, and that was one of his inspirations as far as how they plotted it out of shows of that era. And I think a lot of modern network procedurals of the last 20 years have kind of followed that route as well. Of you have your individual sort of monster of the week, villain of the week episodes, but there is an overarching plot that you're following that's going to come to a head at the end of the season. So yeah, that's another good thing to look forward as far as what to expect from a narrative perspective.
Yep. Once again, I will just take this time to say, please, if you liked this bonus episode, if you've listened to our previous bonus episodes, which we know by the numbers that show up on the Pod Tower on YouTube, that we have a lot of people that are interested in these particular episodes. If you are a buzz about Batman Caped Crusader, make sure you go on your favorite podcast app. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify also. Subscribe there and get our reviews coming up the month of August. We're going to review the first 4 episodes of the show, and we have a lot of fun in those reviews. We're going to talk a lot about what we like. If there was things that we didn't like, we give an overall score for each episode. It's a lot of fun. So make sure you come back when we review those in full. If you haven't already subscribed to us now. Don't come back. Subscribe to us now, and then make sure you tune in. Keep listening from now until August 1st, and then we'll start reviewing Batman Caped Crusader.
Absolutely, Cal. Looking forward to that. As you mentioned, we'll be reviewing the first 4 episodes over the 4 weeks of August. So very excited to break into this show when it comes out. Until then, we do want to hear from you. You can leave your comments if you are in fact listening or watching on the Pod Tower YouTube channel. We do try to check those. But another great way to get in touch with us would, of course, be on our social media. You can find us at DCAU Review on the site formerly known as Twitter, as well as on Instagram and sort of on Threads. If that's more your bag. So you can reach out to us. Either you can comment on our posts, reply to us publicly. You can also DM us if you prefer to share your thoughts privately. But, as we're about a month out now, we finally got this trailer. We want to know what you're excited for, what you're maybe apprehensive about, and some things you're hoping to see in this season and maybe in future seasons. Who knows? So let us know what you think at DCAU Review. And as mentioned, we do want to thank you for listening today, as no matter how you do it, whether it's on the Pod Tower YouTube channel, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of those other third-party apps. We appreciate you. If you'd like to support the show, a great free way to do that is, in fact, as Cal mentioned, to just subscribe to us wherever you're listening. Give us 5 stars. If it lets you write a review, write us a nice review. We actually will read those out on the show if you leave a review for us and you give us 5 stars, and we'll even send you a little gift. So that's a great free way to support us, as well as following us on the socials. And then a more direct way for you to support us is in the show notes below. There is a donate button there. We have a couple of people who give us a little bit monthly, which are incredibly kind and generous. And we also have a link to our store. You can pick yourself up a mug or a sticker or a hat or a shirt or something and support us that way as well. But however you choose to support us, we thank you. And I think that about wraps it up. So until next time, I'm Liam.
And I'm Cal.
And we'll talk to you soon on another episode of the DCAU Review.
Bye-bye.